Yo, there are all sorts of problems in the world. I'm not sure climate change is the biggest. Now, they're mischaracterizing Louie Gohmert. I need to defend Louie Gohmert. Louie Gohmert, congressman from Texas. I had to go back and watch the clip because a lot of people were blasting him. It was on social media, and a buddy of mine said, no. Go watch the whole thing, not just the clip. I want to play you what's being circulated out there.
And I understand from what's been testified to the Forest Service and the BLM, you want very much to work on the issue of climate change.
By the way, let me pause here. He's not talking about Black Lives Matter, and some people thought he was. He's talking about the Bureau of Land Management.
Informed by the immediate past director of NASA that they have found that the moon's orbit is changing slightly, and so is the Earth's orbit around the sun. We know there's been significant solar flare activity. And so is there anything that the National Forest Service or BLM can do to change the course of the moon's orbit or the Earth's orbit around the sun? Obviously, that would have profound effects on our climate.
I would have to follow up with you on that one, Mr. Gohmert.
Yeah. Well, if you figure out a way that you in the Forest Service can make that change, I'd like to know.
You hear his tone of voice here. He's being totally mischaracterized by people on the left. Louie Gohmert is emphasizing that we're dealing with a natural phenomenon. You can disagree with Louie Gohmert, but don't mischaracterize Louie Gohmert. And again, I got to tell you, a lot of my friends sent me that clip. They're like, I can't believe he did this. Oh my gosh, I'm so embarrassed. And I thought, I can't believe Louie would do that. And then I went and talked to a buddy of mine. He's like, no, you gotta watch the whole setup here. Gohmert was emphasizing in the hearing that climate change is in part or mostly or all a natural phenomenon. And unless we can move the Earth further away from the sun, we're not going to fix the problem. And instead of trying to upend our economy and upend the way Western civilization lives, we should instead be adapting to climate change, not trying to stop something that is in large part a natural phenomenon. Now, what the left is doing here is they're trying to make Louie Gohmert look like a crank and try to make him look out to lunch, so they discredit the underlying point because they don't actually want to deal with Louie Gohmert's underlying point. Louie Gohmert's underlying point being you can't, if this is natural, you can't stop it. I got to tell you, I have come around on the issue of climate change to the degree that I do think there is climate change. The climate changes all the time. There's spring, there's fall, there's winter, there's summer. There are hot seasons, there are cool seasons, there are droughts, there is too much rain. The climate always changes. I do think that when you have however many billions of people on the planet, that yes, it can impact the climate, but I also think that the scientists overstate or understate the level of natural phenomenon, because if they can't stop the natural phenomenon, let's focus on the people problem and get money from governments. Yes, I do think people contribute to the problem. No, I do not think it's as much as the left would have you believe. And by the way, I don't understand why the people of the United States have to give up their way of life when it's really not us. We continue to cut emissions. We continue to do the right thing. It's China, it's Russia, it's India, it's Brazil, it's these other countries that are not doing what they say they're going to do. And every time President Xi of China comes out and says they're going to take on something, he's like, oh my gosh, the President Xi is going to do this. But they never actually do. The Chinese say a lot of things that give thigh sweats to the American press corps, but China never follows through on this stuff. They know how to play the American media. We've got to adapt. And Louie Gohmert is right on that point. And Louie Gohmert should not be mischaracterized by the left or by social media. Twitter employees are the ones who really helped mischaracterize Louie Gohmert. His point is we have to adapt. For Joe Biden to go out and tell soldiers that global warming is the biggest threat they're going to have to deal with should be more ripe for ridicule than what Louie Gohmert said. Because his point was a sarcastic point to emphasize the natural phenomena of us being the distance we are from the sun. And since we can't move the planet, we can't fix the problem, so let's adapt to it. Joe Biden is out there actually telling American soldiers at a time American institutions are getting hacked by Russians and the Chinese are looking expansionist. We got supposed UFOs flying around that are actually military tech from countries that we don't understand, that somehow climate change is the biggest problem. This White House is out to lunch. This White House is going to put us further behind. This White House is asleep at the switch. If they really believe that soldiers are going to have to fight climate change, or they're going to have to deal with people packing up and leaving and moving to other places because of climate change, we got problems. We got problems. Last week it was white supremacy. This week it's climate change. What'll it be next week? Will we be back to the pandemic next week? That the pandemic will be the worst thing, but don't talk about China. What will be the worst thing for humanity next week? We've gone through white supremacy. We're now at climate change. I don't know. Skinny jeans, maybe hipsters. Gen Z. I mean, Gen Z is probably a bigger threat than climate change. They'll come up with something, I'm sure. But every week it's a new worst thing ever. From white supremacy to climate change. And don't pay attention to the changing goalposts, the moving goalposts. Pay attention to what Louie Gohmert said. No, actually, Louie Gohmert had a valid point, and he's being mischaracterized by a whole lot of people because they don't want to deal with the point he was making.